Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Wellstead. I'm the founder and CEO of Big Bear Partners, which is a company that is focused on helping technology companies here in the UK basically scale up. And what I do is I provide the people strategy components to basically help organizations go from early stage investment all the way through, hopefully, to global dominance. And I want to talk to you guys today about something that is called the Five Behaviors, which is in essence basically how to create the conditions for a high performing team. I picked up a book some time ago called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And it's a parable about a fictional company called Decision Tech, who had everything going for it. A seasoned executive team, solid business plan, plenty of startup capital from investors, and really kind of leading edge technology. But they were unable to capitalize on their advantage and were getting instead mired down in dysfunction. They missed production deadlines, they had a growing employee turnover problem, an eroding cash position, and the company was really on the brink of failure. The problem for the executive team was that they didn't trust one another. They were unable to kind of discuss critical issues. They were ambiguous and unclear about their priorities, and they were unwilling to kind of hold each other accountable. Overly focused on individual and departmental kind of cover your ass goals as at the expense of the company wide goals that ultimately really would have made a difference. This is really the holy grail of what it is we're hoping to achieve in our organizations with and through our people. It's so easy to allow the right side of this pyramid to generate mistrust, and then that kind of typically, kind of causes us to avoid conflict, and it leads to political ambiguity and a lack of commitment. And that's why it's critical to be consciously aware of your behavior and our collective behaviors and how they're being interpreted, and to ensure that all team leaders are consistently behaving in a pro-social and transparent way. Most companies I've worked for, which is like 19 in all over the course of the past 31 years, suffered from varying degrees of dysfunction, and mostly because the natural default state for human organizations, if you don't inject powerful intention and address these areas explicitly, and closely monitor the five behaviors, that are required to hit a high performing team, often can derail your efforts. So think back to your own working experience and how many organizations you would classify as high performing versus dysfunctional. Patrick Lencioni, in his book, talks about trust, and the ultimate kind of base of the pyramid, the foundational component that basically drives everything else. And trust is really the confidence that you and your peers have in terms of the good intentions that you're trying to achieve, and basically being assured that you're not out to harm one another. Teams that trust one another are comfortable being vulnerable and can admit mistakes and weaknesses. And trust leads to being able to manage conflict constructively, with a focus on ideas and versus personalities. Functional teams engage in ideological conflict, and worried less about who the people are who are actually bringing forth the challenges. And committed teams are those that have full buy-in from everybody and will be more likely to commit to decisions. High-performing teams hold each other accountable to a high-performance standard, and great teams are focused on team results, not individual milestones or vanity targets that are not linked to the overall company impact. Trust is where Patrick starts in his analysis, and why? Because it's fundamental to all other behaviors. Trust is essential to foster comfort at being open, expressing your opinions, and at addressing challenging problems that need solving. And in my experience, working in great teams often meant that the people there were non judgmental when others expressed themselves, because they were all aimed basically at the problem and not the personalities in the room. Oftentimes we felt joined up in solving it together, never worrying about, being picked on or called out for saying something foolish. And that required everybody on the team to be consciously empathic, thinking through where other team members were coming from, their discipline and experience and positioning. Judgment doesn't enter into my responses. but more focused on what was said and how it addressed the issue at hand. Humor also plays a role in helping us laugh at ourselves and along with each other, taking the sting out of the sometimes awkward issues that were addressed. Keeping things light and knowing when these things were serious enough is a very, very powerful approach. Being comfortable in being vulnerable with each other is a super powerful thing. It may sound like a bit of psychological faff, but when you're able to share how you're feeling and what worries you personally and why you think a particular approach might not work when everybody else seems to gravitate towards it, is really game changing. They say that trust is earned in drips, but it's lost in buckets. And it's true in our personal experience. We're geared not necessarily to trust one another, especially strangers. But when you do have trust, you can build on significant evidence where your vulnerable moments and shares were accepted, understood, and reviewed objectively. Additionally, it can lead to some very important next steps in becoming, even more productive. So, how do you develop trust? It's a behavior that's not necessarily innate or instinctual. It's often the case that most of us have been trained not to trust others and strangers. We basically have to see evidence, basically, of trust being practiced genuinely in the room. And team leaders have a really powerful role to play here, providing a space for people to admit mistakes and share where they feel weaker, possibly, than they should. And also recognizing some team leaders who may be more reticent to participate than others and need a bit of encouragement or support is really essential too. You can often, kind of pull others into a trusted relationship with you when you admit your own mistakes or confusion or presumptions that proved wrong. And people will always look to those most influential in a team to gauge their own behavior, to learn what's required and how to engage. And they'll often mirror the behavior that they're seeing as being successful. Trust is really so powerful because it needs to be there in buckets in order for the next level of capability to be embraced effectively. The best, fastest growing, most revenue generative, and powerfully influential organizations are those that have embraced constructive conflict, putting all personal bias aside and laser focusing on the problem that needs solving is really how great organizations leapt forward. This is also the hardest behavior to get right. Many of us are taught to avoid conflict, to de-escalate, and to play nice with other people. Argumentation is often frowned upon and was in some cases punished in our childhoods. But where would we be if we just accepted whatever ideas or solutions came around first, without first questioning, whether or not it was the best possible solution or idea? Probably nowhere, and probably worse off. We've all had the experience of influential leaders or functional leaders pretending to be the smartest people in the room and ignoring all other inputs, or worse, pretending to accept challenges, but then not having any intention to change their own minds. We've also seen incredible companies change the very way we think and interact with their products and solutions. Companies like Apple and Google, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, the list goes on. And they really got there through creative and constructive conflict. Productive conflict is all about shifting your focus away from the people and personalities and instead focusing on the problem at hand. Your teammates are not the enemy. The problem is. So be conscious about how it is you express yourself. Use phrases like, in my experience, or I like to think of it as, or one thing that's helped me understand it was. Those kinds of things basically communicate that you're taking ownership for your thoughts, opinions, and feelings. And it kind of helps remove any assumptions that you're speaking authoritatively and telling everybody, look, this is how it is. But don't be apologetic about your thinking either. I mean, great teams encourage everybody's thinking to make sure that they are getting the best solutions. So never be afraid to call out the elephant in the room. Do it by encouraging everybody to think about how they might address the problem themselves. And then share across in a more, kind of orderly approach versus letting the more expressive folks take over the conversation. Avoiding conflict is a natural thing for me personally. I hate how I feel, when I'm sensing conflict, so much so that it's kind of turned me into a bit of a diplomat. I always feel the need to keep the peace, even if the exchange is relatively mild. I need to remind myself that that nothing good will ever come from my being compliant and letting others talk over me. My opinion does count, and I need to voice it, even if it feels awkward for me to do so. Providing a safe space for quiet team members to share their thoughts is really essential too for group cohesion. You will often be surprised at how enlightened their thinking and contributions are. They're typically kind of sitting back and absorbing everything and consolidating what it is they're hearing. And then they come out with some incredible insights often. And again, focus on the ideas, the problems at hand, and aim your attentions and focus there. One trick is to acknowledge how your thinking was supported by what others have already shared, and giving them credit by name. If trust is always present and the constructive conflict is helping to kind of unpick the problem and focus on the ideas, it really ensures that you're teasing out all the most important and effective approach together. Commitment often comes much more naturally. That feeling that the group has that they've kind of gone into battle and they've attacked the enemy together creates a natural and rather fulfilling sense of camaraderie, that often spills into sort of a combined sense of accomplishment. When there's a joined up solution that flows from the team and the leader is verified that the entire team thinks it's the best approach, our minds often lock into our results and form a virtuous, kind of circle around perceived efficacy. So importantly, it builds a sense of belonging and attachment and having been there through the challenge and journey together, and that you've come out feeling positive about your thinking and ideas. It's really rather magical, when a team comes together, as it creates a sense of euphoria and accomplishment, that most team members share. People feel focused and that they are pulling in the same direction. They're often clear about what needs doing and who's going to deliver what to whom by when. And disagreements have often been aired and discussed, hopefully debunked or agreed upon in the end, and leaving no loose ends. And the team builds a stronger sense of cohesiveness together. What's important is to make sure that everybody's on board, with the group's agreed approach, preferably as you're going through the problem solving together. Because nothing is worse than, when you get to the end, or what you think is the end, and then you seek everybody's opinion only to realize that there's actually a few folks who just didn't buy into the result at all. So sense check along the way and make sure that people are coming with you, not waiting to ambush you at the end or feel that they really weren't part of the solution. Ensure everybody feels involved, share their opinions, and they're connected to the outcome. Built into gaining group commitment on the outcomes that were agreed, it's critically important that everybody knows what their part is in delivering the results. After a healthy amount of constructive conflict and hard-won group commitment to solving the challenging problem, it's a natural tendency to kind of adjourn the team and walk away, and with a feeling that, hey, that's great, the job's done. But actually, the most important aspect of a great team solution is ensuring that everybody there signs up to delivering the results, that everybody is personally accountable to ensuring that the specific deliverables are aligned, and that they're clear about what it is that's expected of them in terms of quality and quantity and the impact of their delivery. Then holding everybody to what they promised to one another becomes really quite personal, and ownership becomes a way of being. It helps to recognize team members who pull their weight and own their outcomes. Equally, it's important to address those people who are not necessarily carrying their accountability and delivering as promised. So, in the spirit of all for one and one for all, and with a particular focus on supporting company targets and objectives, it's not just personal or departmental siloed objectives. Accountability becomes more than kind of just getting your work done. It's really about taking personal responsibility and ownership for making a company and its people better than good. It's a personal decision to step up and take control over your area of empowerment and strongly support your area of influence. The corollary dysfunction is, taking a passive passenger role in your organization, allowing others to divert you off course and missing your deadlines. And you don't feel, connected then to the outcome as being critical or even useful. Taking personal accountability also empowers you to reach out to others and to ensure that they are holding up, their end as well. Nothing speaks louder than, leading by example. Accountability can be sticky and, a confrontational topic. In my experience, there's nothing worse than somebody calling me out for not delivering something on time when they themselves, don't regularly deliver consistently. So this is a cultural thing, and it's a new behavior to get used to. Learning and even encouraging teammates to, kind of keep you honest and ensure you're on track is a hard thing to accept. Who needs more hassle, and everybody chasing you? The magic of that cultural norm is that it becomes a force multiplier across the company. If managers don't have to micromanage and team members are holding themselves to account on their own, people begin to feel that, they really have a hand in driving the direction of the company. One suggested way, you can ease concern, is, when you're kind of kicking what you feel like is kicking the hornet's nest is by holding others to account, is really kind of by asking them supportively, is there anything you can, you can do rather to support or to help them with their workload? And as mentioned earlier, any organization where everybody feels empowered to contribute openly to their teams, co-create great solutions, commit to the collective outcome, of their agreements and personally own their part in delivering and keep others honest in that pursuit, you would really struggle to kind of screw up creating great results. But, again, results are more than simply saying, here it is, we're done. It's really about valuing the quality and the impact of the results, and not just, from your team, but across the company. It's seeing how your team's impact has supported the company targets and goals. Great results is really the end game and should be treated as the powerful finish line that it is, where wins are loudly celebrated and losses are taken personally and explored, for improvement. Ensuring everybody is recognized for a great result has a magical effect, I think. Everybody's mind goes to wanting that endorphin hit. They sense that great sense of accomplishment. Equally, embracing, why an effort came up short and trying to figure out, how we can avoid missing, next time is super important as well. And allowing space for that, is essential. If the wins are personally accountable to specific people, award that behavior, with an important moment that matters to them. If the losses are personally assignable, then help them with course correction, a skill gap, or support through coaching. If they've chosen to kind of walk away from this particular ride, that's a decision that's valid, and it should be handled quickly, but with respect and dignity. My personal challenge is often keeping focused on the results delivery. I can really get lost in the process, the team dynamics, and the sheer movement and kinetics of kind of being amongst, the team at the height of its activity. So, the feedback that often comes to me is to ensure I can actually deliver what it is I say I will. I also have to watch, not taking full responsibility for the failure of my team. It's a protective mechanism, to kind of find blame in external forces or people. But, end of the day, more often than not, I know exactly what my part was in the miss, and I need to own that. What I am brilliant in doing is building team unity and creating a common shared purpose to rally around. People on a delivery team, being on a delivery team rather, can really be grueling. So finding out how to kind of keep that buzz, that juice, that fun, and that connection in terms of team cohesion is really essential for me. So, in the end, I need to remember where my natural strengths and tendencies lie. Importantly, I need to remember where I'm less focused and possibly avoiding competence, because it's just not my natural preference. And being overzealous and avoiding sensitive issues, and remembering, to pull input from everybody in the room, and making sure that I wait for others to keep up, and do my part to hold others accountable in a constructive way, is really where I need to grow. Oh yeah, and I need to also avoid being distracted across any of these other areas. So as you can see, working the five behaviors is hard work. It's not necessarily intuitive, but man, if done right, it really yields some powerful results. And if done well with consistency, it can really be, the essence of your success. So, everybody can own and impact whether or not they want their company to be a high performing or dysfunctional organization. No organization, reads a book or takes a course, and decides that they will become high performing in the next month. It's a deeply considered and hard won cultural shift in the way that you choose to work, and the way that you choose to behave collectively as an organization. And it requires some tough decisions about who jumps on board with this approach, and who actively rejects it. Meaningful awards and recognition to encourage, the desired behaviors, and equally direct and immediate actions in addressing those who just don't wish to partake, is really kind of how you send the message as to what you intend to be, whether you're going to be high performing, or allow or tolerate dysfunction. And this may not be your desired way of being. And many organizations take the middle road, tolerating average behavior and outcomes. But as competition heats up and the many seismic transformations that are kind of upon us kick in, committing to becoming a high performing organization, person by person, is likely going to be, your most adaptive, survival pathway.